whatever. It's a little chilly. I just turned down the air conditioning in my room. Fan's still blowing. Just kind of hoping it wouldn't be blowing. I like white noise when I'm sleeping. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. It's nice and quiet. I like white noise when I'm sleeping. But now, now when I'm trying to listen to something or talk or think or what have you. And anyway, thank you for hopping on today here on Instagram. It is Friday, about 10:25. I was just out. Got all dressed, got ready to go on my day. Gonna go to the gym, and then I have a couple things more planned to do this afternoon. Hello from Lake Tahoe, and was watching CNBC. And you guys know, if you've been watching a while, that I was a realtor for 17 years. I was a stockbroker and day trader and did various things in my life. I'm currently waiting tables here in Naperville. It's crazy the way life sends you on your way. And I don't know. If you don't hold on to the rudder, sometimes you can lose your way a little bit. But that's okay. But anyway, I was watching CNBC, and they were interviewing the CEO of eXp Realty, which is a growing real estate company across the country. I was shocked to find out it is actually the largest in terms of number of agents real estate company in the country. And again, I remember meeting with a bigwig for eXp Realty about 10 years ago. And they're big on profit share, and I think we're founded by some agents that were former Keller Williams agents. And anyway, he was being interviewed because there's a bunch of new rules happening in the real estate industry, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes. And although he disagreed, I think there's going to be a ton of realtors leaving the business. And honestly, I think that's what needs to happen. And one of the reasons I left the business is I just found there were too many darn realtors. I couldn't walk out the door or introduce myself without meeting another realtor. And I just found it was almost silly how many real estate agents there are across the country, certainly in my town, but again, I think in places across the country. I'm not saying realtors are overpaid, because most realtors, probably 90% of them at least, are living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to put food on their tables and pay their rent or pay their mortgage or pay their bills or what have you. And I know I was doing it. It's harder than most people think. And the reason is because there's so many crazy realtors, because everybody watches HGTV and everybody thinks it'd be so fun and they like homes and they do a great job being a realtor. And I think most people join and realize pretty quickly that it's a lot harder, a lot different than they expected. But anyway, the CEO of eXp Realty was talking, and he was basically sharing his thoughts with the woman on CNBC. And apparently the new rules are going to cause the buyer of a home, or the would-be buyer, or the looker of the home, to sign a contract with an agent before they go and see any homes. And we always had those buyer's agency agreements. Honestly, I never felt really comfortable using them as an agent. And I didn't see any need or see any want or feel any reason for a buyer to be trapped with me contractually if he was thinking about buying a home. So I never felt real comfortable using them, and I knew the industry was going that way. And just one of the many, many reasons I am no longer in the business after 17 years. But anyway, the agency agreement is now going to, the deal, the National Association of Realtors settled a deal with the Justice Department or the federal government, and I apologize if I'm not saying the right agency that they signed an agreement with, but about 6 months back, that's going to, I think, change the industry. And for all my career and all the years before, the seller would pay a commission to a listing agent maybe 4, 5, 6, 7% or what have you. And the listing agent brokerage would pay a buyer's agent to bring in a buyer and represent the buyer, and that's how everybody would get paid. They're no longer required to do that, and they're no longer going to be doing that, and they're no longer allowed to offer buyer's agents commissions on the MLS. And I think that's going to be interesting, and it's going to change things dramatically. The buyer themselves are going to have to compensate the buyer's agent when they show them homes. And again, I think this is going to change things dramatically. The CEO of eXp Realty hopped on and said, well, I don't think it's going to change the compensation because the buyer's agent spends about 100 hours closing a deal on a house from the time he meets the client till he closes the sale of the home. And I don't know if the 100 hours is true. I do know it takes a lot of time. You're spending, some buyers will look at 50 homes or what have you, and you're driving around and showing homes and opening doors and doing inspections and, having deals fall through. And again, it's a lot more work than people know. But my issue was this. I'm wondering how valuable, what the value the buyer's agent is really doing at the end of the day when he's working with his buyer. Yes, we as realtors have experience, and yes, we understand that there's the standard contract, at least in Illinois, has a 5-day period for attorney review and 5-day period for to get a home inspector in there. But I didn't find for myself when I was showing homes and I was driving a car around and I was going from 123 Main Street to 567 Park Avenue and then opening the door and letting the client in and saying, hey, what a beautiful home. Hey, this is a nice kitchen. Hey, look at these fancy cabinets or the stainless appliances or whatever. I didn't think my presence, other than opening the door, was super necessary. And I tried hard. I promise you I tried hard. I wanted to make a difference, make my clients love me, be the best realtor I could. But I often found the more I spoke, the less I sold. And I know as a consumer, when I was looking at homes, the last thing I wanted was a realtor giving me a tour. And what I would often do is leave my wife at the time, now my ex-wife, that could be part of the reason, with the realtor and go check out the home on my own and just see it as I wanted. And I felt more comfortable experiencing a home that way and not being sold, I don't know, the paint color or the blinds or the space or the everything with every room I went in. Because I think as a consumer, whether you're interested in a home or not. And honestly, I didn't think anything the realtor said impacted me as a consumer or anything almost I said to the buyer as a realtor impacted whether they were going to buy it or not. And those are my thoughts. And I think the industry is going to continue to change dramatically. And I think the system is going to get more efficient. And somehow, some way, the buyer's agent's going to be taken out of it. Because I know if I was looking to buy a home, whether I was a first-time buyer or a seasoned buyer, I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable offering a buyer's agent 2.5% to close on a home. Money's tight for me, and I know it's tight for a lot of people across the country. 2.5% on a $400,000 home is $10,000 that you're going to be offering to a buyer's agent. And I'll tell you what, that $10,000, I know for me would be better off going towards a down payment or is going to be needed for a down payment. And I don't know any buyer that's got an extra $10,000 sitting around to pay a buyer's agent. I just don't. Chip asked, how is it better or worse for the buyer and the seller? I think the whole system's going to be streamlined. I think, yes, realtors don't make a ton of money, and yes, they put a lot of work into it, but I think technology is going to come in and change the way the business is done. I think the main thing as a buyer's agent I did was set the appointments to go see the homes and open the door and say, here's the home. You want to write an offer? And I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this because there's more to it than that. I know there's more to it than that. But there's not a ton more to it. And yes, you've been in more homes. And yes, we know what to look for in terms of watermarks on the ceiling or what have you. But at the end of the day, the system is pretty set on how you buy and sell a home. And I think it could be streamlined, the process, and that 5 or 6% that is being charged the buyer or seller could be reduced dramatically. And I've done videos about that. And I think that's where we're going. And I think that's where it's going to head. And I think there's going to be a lot less agents doing a lot more volume at a lot lower cost per transaction going forward. And I've talked about that for years. And when I first got into the business 15 years ago or whatever, 18 years ago now, I guess, I was trying to revolutionize the business and do it cheaper. But honestly, consumers didn't know better and thought I was just trying to discount the system. But I was trying to change the system, and maybe before it was ready to be changed. But what we're seeing coming out, when will be the best time to buy for a first-time home buyer? When you really need to buy a home, I think, as a first-time home buyer, and I'm a guy that would love to buy a home right now and honestly can't afford one. I'm staying in an extended stay because I haven't figured out where I'm going to be living going forward. The price of homes is so high right now across the country. And I'm a guy that just rode a scooter back from Wyoming, the Yellowstone National Park, and through Montana and through South Dakota and through Minnesota and through Iowa and Wisconsin and Illinois. And I've seen the country. I've talked to people. Housing prices across the country are just beyond what many or most can afford. Yes, we've seen interest rates come down a little bit over the last, couple months or so. But I think the real issue, I just don't think people can afford to pay what the market's, what supply and demand is showing for home prices, which seems contra because I'm a free market guy and believe in supply and demand, but something's messed up and prices have gotten out of whack. And I know kids that are living in cars, and I'm staying in an extended stay, and people are wondering how they're going to buy a home. And I think there's a serious problem across the country in terms of housing. And I think this is just one tiny, small step to go in the right direction, that the realtors are changing the way they're doing business. I used to sit down with sellers and they would want to know what their total costs for selling a home would be. And it wasn't, and I would say, well, guesstimate or estimate 10% are going to be your closing costs, Mr. Seller. That's real estate commission. It's just all the other fees, because there's a lot of agencies, a lot of attorneys' fees, and a lot of, just a whole bunch of fees that a lot of people have your hand in the real estate seller's pocket every transaction that happens. And I think the costs were crazy high to sell a home, and they don't need to be. And I think those prices those costs are gonna be reduced. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the real estate market going forward, because there is change happening. And again, I was watching it today, and what spurred me to get on was the CEO of this eXp Realty saying that the average buyer's agent puts in 100 hours of work to close a buyer's sale. And maybe that's true. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that is well spent time. That is time spent driving around or acquiring the client or what have you. And things are changing. And things are probably going to keep changing. And I think we're going to streamline the process and make it easier and more simple to understand, and maybe remove a few hands from the pockets of the seller. And I'd like to see that. Somebody's asking if I believe prices will come down in the next 6 months. You know, I thought prices were too high for a while, and I've been wrong for a while. I know I can't afford a house here in Naperville, Illinois. And I know when I lived in Wyoming or Montana, prices were even higher there. And I think the cause of that could be many. I might as well just say it. It's my show. I think I saw today that there was a new plan, an economic plan by a presidential candidate, and she was going to offer incentives from the government to for first-time home buyers and all this other stuff. I think the government's too involved in the process, and I'd like to see them get out of it. And whether it's home building or home buying or home selling, I firmly believe government's involvement should be minimalized. And I think there's home builders out there there's land out there. I promise you, I just drove through Montana. There is a hell of a lot of land in Montana and South Dakota that is undeveloped. It's just sitting there. That's got to be cheap. And there's home builders capable and willing and wanting to build homes. But I think due to government regulation, it's just gotten too expensive. And it causes home prices to go higher across the board. And I'd like to see less government regulation across the board, certainly in home building. And I would like to see prices come down, because I know I can't afford to buy a home in my beautiful city of Naperville. And it's not just me. And it's not just in Naperville, or not just in Illinois, or not just in Chicago. It is across the country, and it's an issue that's going to have to change. So anyway, I just wanted to hop on today, and before I headed out for my day, I'm excited about my Friday. I'm feeling good, and I hope you're feeling good as well. I want to thank you for hopping on today. I hope you subscribe to me, whether you're watching me on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok. If you don't follow me and you're seeing me for the first time, please subscribe to my page. I appreciate you. I'm just one guy talking, and if you want to be listening, that's I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you are feeling good. I hope you are loving yourself. I hope you're forgiving yourself. And as always, I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.